Jesus.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners now and at the hour of death. Amen.
Behold the handmaid of the Lord.
Be it done to me according to your word.
Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners now and at the hour of death. Amen.
And the Word was made flesh,
and dwelt amongst us.
Hail Mary, full of grace, the Lord is with thee. Blessed art thou among women, and blessed is the fruit of thy womb, Jesus.
Holy Mary, Mother of God, pray for us sinners now and at the hour of death. Amen.
Pray for us, O Holy Mother of God,
that we may be made worthy of the promises of Christ. Pour forth, we beseech you, O Lord, your grace into our hearts, that we, to whom the incarnation of Christ, your Son, was made known by the message of an angel, may by his passion and cross be brought to the glory of his resurrection, through the same Christ our Lord. Amen.
7 pesos per liter, just like in the 80s. It's a limited promo for a new Netflix movie, and motorists jumped at the chance of gassing up for less. Most of them, private vehicle owners. James drove all the way here from Pasig City Friday morning after securing a slot online.
Sayang din yung discount eh, di ba? If you do the math, sabi ko ba, pwede na yung worth it na yung drive. Wala na nga akong gas eh.
Wala nang gas
Sakto.
This family said it will help them stretch their budget.
Nalaman ko po sa anak ko. Kahit paano po yung matitipid namin, hindi pang grocery lang nga po kung tutusin.
May dadagdag pa po namin doon sa mga ibang bilihin po.
Delivery rider John regrets that his motorcycle can only contain 4 liters since the promo allowed a single purchase of up to 40 liters.
Wala kasi akong sasakyan. Siguro mahirapan ba ibaba sa ganitong presyo yung gasolina, kahit di naman sa dating presyo lang bago ipagtaas.
But the bad news for consumers, industry sources are seeing another fuel price hike next week. An increase of around 5 pesos per liter for diesel and kerosene and more than 1 peso per liter of gasoline. The Energy Department says domestic prices are affected by the higher demand for oil in the global market and the impending embargo on major oil exporter Russia. Public utility vehicle drivers again appeal to the government to bring down fuel prices and distribute aid.
Mabigat po kasi ito lang po ang inaasahan namin sa pang-araw-araw.
Pagalingan na lang po magtiyaga. Kailangan mo po dagdagan yung oras ng biyahe mo para may maiuwi ka. Sana lang po magkaroon po ng ayuda ulit para sa mga driver. Sana po yun tutukan nila ng bababaan nila, lalo na kay BBM. Yun ang pag-aaral natin.
President Bongbong Marcos is taking the same route as the Duterte administration. He is not keen on suspending the oil excise tax, while the second tranche of fuel subsidy has yet to reach PUV drivers. Amor Santos, CNN Philippines.
Consumers are facing higher prices and low supply of goods, one after the other. First it was sugar, then white onions. Now it's salt and sweet potatoes. Carrie Cator checked on a wet market in Metro Manila.
At a time of tight supply, salt is the least item in the list.
Sabi kasi, medyo mahirap ngayon ng kuhanan ng asin. Kaya kailangan daw may stock na kami.
In one wet market in Quezon City, salt is selling for a higher price. From 12 pesos, Lulu Ramos now sells rock and iodized salt for 15 pesos per kilogram. Salt packets cost 48 pesos per kilo, higher than the suggested retail price of 23 to 29 pesos. Consumers are feeling the pinch of higher prices.
Ganun pa rin kasi alam mo naman yung asin, di ba, ano natin yan, kailangan natin sa pagluluto, sa lahat ng bagay.
Yung 500 peso mo, isang bigwasan lang, tapos na isang kainan lang. Hindi katulad nun.
While the Agriculture Department says the country may be low on salt supply, Trade Undersecretary Ruth Castelo says this is the first increase in salt prices in up to 6 years. But the increase cuts across some produce including sugar and sweet potatoes. Refined sugar now costs 96 pesos, 1 peso higher than the SRP. Washed sugar is sold for 76 pesos, up by 2 pesos from last week. As for sweet potatoes,
Ngayon po sobrang hirap ng kamote dahil ang papangit na po ng mga balat. Gawa po yan ng Gawa po ng ng kalamidad na sobra ang bagyo.
Meat and dairy product prices are no exception. Wet markets sell chicken for 10 to 20 pesos more, while beef costs about 40 pesos higher than the 420 peso SRP. Even eggs are sold for 7 pesos and 50 centavos instead of 7 pesos. The price is right only until supplies last, and consumers can only hope that food in stock is enough to meet demand. Kari Cator, CNN Philippines.
The Social Welfare Department is making sure students and parents will not see a repeat of the chaotic initial distribution of cash assistance. AC Nichols tells us the DSWD also has an appeal to beneficiaries a day before the rollout.
Joy Lopez is taking up criminology in a private college in Quezon City. But her family is barely making ends meet amid rising prices of basic commodities. She applied and received much-needed help from the Social Welfare Department's Cash Aid program for poor students.
Malaking tulong po ito para mabili ko po yung mga pangangailangan ko sa school, lalo na po matatapos na po ako mag-aral.
The DSWD says around 70,000 students have received aid since the first payout last Saturday. The agency will hold nationwide payout days every Saturday for the next month, targeting up to 400,000 beneficiaries. Huge crowds trooped to DSWD offices last Saturday after the payout was announced. This time, the DSWD is appealing to possible beneficiaries. Wait for a text confirmation before going to the payout centers. Those who walk in will not be served.
Kasi naman ipagtabuyan pa po tayo o kung ano man magkainitan pa along the way, wag na lang po in the first place pumunta dahil ito po talaga yung nilaan namin para sa may online registration.
There are over 200 payout centers nationwide, a mix of DSWD and local government facilities. In the National Capital Region, beneficiaries will be directed to one of 3 payout centers in Taguig, Quezon City, and Manila. Students or their parents are reminded to bring documents that will prove their children are enrolled in school, such as a certificate of enrollment or school ID. And what about students who don't have access to gadgets or the internet, like those living in isolated communities? The DSWD says it is now working with LGUs to identify poor students who may receive assistance through off-site payouts.
Our field offices are tasked to prepare their implementation plan in cognizance of the peculiarities doon po sa ground.
AC Nichols, CNN Philippines.
President Marcos is promising small and medium enterprises that their revitalization and digitalization are among his administration's top priorities. Our senior correspondent Lois Calderon joins us live from Manila. Lois, what else can you tell us?
Pia, a long day for entrepreneurs, but filled with fresh hope and big promises. President Bongbong Marcos has personally come to meet them. About 500 of them, small and medium business owners and even micro enterprises here at the Manila Hotel. The occasion actually is one hosted by Go Negosyo, whose main job is mentoring struggling businesses. It's the first large-scale gathering for this sector since the pandemic, and we saw hundreds of MSMEs waiting to see Marcos himself. With security tight, it's hard to get an audience with the president, but this was his message to them, that their dreams are aligned with the administration's top priorities. The buzzwords are revitalization and digitalization post-COVID times. America's top diplomat to the Philippines, Mary Kay Carlson, was also present, telling entrepreneurs there are projects by the USAID that can help them go digital. Marcos went off script just to thank the American ambassador who was seated next to him on stage. Let's listen in.
Her Excellency, the Ambassador of the United States of America, I'm very happy to see you here because this, when we first spoke, this is, and I talked about the partnerships that need to be forged for the future. This is precisely the kind of partnership that I meant. And I hope that we will promote this sort of partnership between our two countries on a bilateral and a multilateral basis. I am pleased that the focus of the MSME Summit, our post-pandemic recovery and the promotion of digitalization, are aligned with the priorities of the administration, for we have a common view of our shared future, the future that we as Filipinos will share together. So I express my support.
Pia, this is one of the clear signs that the Philippines is continuously warming up its ties with Washington after a few wrinkles in the two nations' diplomatic ties during former President Duterte's term. Back to you.
Lois, a big crowd there. How did the MSMEs receive the president's message?
Pia, we asked one businessman who has a council of small businesses about how he feels about Marcos's speech, about whether they feel that the government is giving them enough support. Let's listen in.
If his presence today is, a start of that support, then yes, I would like to believe that. Because, the president would be very busy with so many things. And the fact that he spent his afternoon with everyone in this summit, right? That presence and that declaration on national and global media is something to hope on and count on.
Pia, one of the things that they're asking for is market access to grow from small scale to big business. You see, in this very tight credit market where borrowing for expansion of business is very expensive given high interest rates, entrepreneurs or enterprises want banks to come up with a different way or a separate way by which they are assessed if they are credit worthy. So in short, it's a different credit score that they're asking for. Pia, back to you.
Lois Calderon there reporting. More stories up ahead. Yet another controversy involving the Budget Department's procurement service, this time over its failure to withhold final income taxes to pandemic suppliers. And the rehabilitation of the Tulyahan River drawing to a successful close with millions of tons of waste extracted. Keep it here on News 9.
God led me to all these blessings. Kaya ako, all out sa lahat ng bigay ng Panginoon. Spirit, mind, and body. Sa tulong ng exercise, healthy diet, and MXU+. Sabi ng tatay ko, when you put God first, you will always be first. MXU+ with CoQ10 and L-carnitine, my plus in life.
Mahalagang paalala, ang MX3 Plus ay hindi gamot at hindi dapat gamiting panggamot sa anumang uri ng sakit.
Mula sa pinagkakatiwalaan ko sa kusina, Pure Foods Ready to Eat Caldereta. Expertly prepared, kaya tiwalang easy, saucy sarap in a few minutes. Tiwalang quality time, laging made easy. Pure Foods Ready to Eat.
Friends, try nyo to. Vet-approved Nutri-Chunks in lamb flavor. With active boost and prebiotics na pampalisto. Made with real lamb goodness. With essential nutrients to help keep them strong, healthy, and happy. Listo, ganado sa Nutri-Chunks.
Red Horse Beer. Ito ang tama. Sarap ulitin ng lakas ng tama pero di wasak.
Got to get down, living it up. Never touch ground, never enough. Got to get down, living it up. Never touch ground, never enough. Got me feeling good. Got me feeling good. Everything's alright. Staying up good vibes.
Welcome back to CNN Philippines. The Commission on audit again flags the procurement service of the Budget Department, this time for failing to withhold final income taxes on foreign suppliers of COVID-19 items. COA said the government lost some 3 billion pesos in potential revenue because the PSDBM did not withhold the final income tax applicable to non-resident foreign corporations. The unit paid 11.80 billion pesos to foreign suppliers, which are required to pay a 25% tax. The former officer in charge of the PSDBM's Comptroller Division argued that transactions made with the suppliers were exempt from tax under the Bayanihan to Heal as One Act. But COA said this only applies to value-added tax, excise tax, and other fees. The PSDBM also facing the issue of alleged overpriced laptops for teachers at the Education Department. The Budget Secretary makes her case before lawmakers on why the PSDBM should not be abolished despite one controversy after another. This report by Paige Javier.
Budget Secretary Amina Pangandaman defends its procurement service after it becomes embroiled in another issue. Senators are calling for the abolition of PSDBM following Thursday's probe over the 2.4 billion peso laptop mess. Pangandaman defers to Congress if they really wish to do so.
During the time when I was with Secretary Jokno in 2017 to 2019, one of the benefits of the PSDBM is actually the savings that the government incurred during that time, which is worth 18 billion. So I think if we give a chance to PSDBM, and if we clean the process and the system of the procurement in PSDBM, maybe we can go back to its old glory.
She believes PSDBM can be fixed with programs in place. Senators Win Gatchalian and Coco Pimentel think otherwise. Gatchalian says it might be better to let government agencies do their own procurement.
I don't see the point of its existence.
So abolish it.
Just give it to the department, make them accountable. Pera mo yan, ikaw bumili, if may mali, ikaw may accountability dyan.
Gatchalian says the laptop controversy shows there are loopholes in the PSDBM procurement process.
Looking at the setup in PSDBM, I clearly believe that there is something wrong. Probably, may sindikato operating inside PSDBM.
Senator Pimentel says it's time to pull the plug if changes in PSDBM can't be done.
Kaya nga paulit-ulit ang aking hamon kay new Executive Director ng PSDBM, si Attorney Santiago, na save your agency. Kasi kung wala tayong makitang pagbabago na talagang kahangahangang pagbabago, tama na sigurong goodbye PSDBM na.
The Senate Blue Ribbon Committee will resume its probe next week, while a House bill was filed calling for an investigation. The same Commission on Audit report on the laptops flagged the PSDBM's approval of contracts for personal protective equipment worth 1.38 billion pesos, despite the lack of necessary certification. Senators Pimentel and Risa Ontiveros want another probe into this matter.
If I may po, if you'll be giving us a chance to at least clean PSDBM, we will highly be happy with that.
Paige Javier, CNN Philippines.
Severe tropical storm Florita leaves tens of millions of pesos worth of damage to agriculture and infrastructure. Agriculture losses now at more than 19 million pesos, with rice and corn crops hit hard based on data from the Agriculture Department. More than 1,200 farmers affected. The DA distributed bags of seeds to the farmers. Disaster management officials say damage to infrastructure reached almost 34 million pesos. Florita damaged 24 roads and bridges in the Ilocos region, as well as 7 infrastructure in Cagayan Valley. Meanwhile, the Bangsamoro Autonomous Region in Muslim Mindanao under a state of calamity because of widespread flooding brought by bad weather. The state of calamity took effect on August 18 and will last until the end of October. The Tulyan River Cleanup Project has finally been completed after 2 years. San Miguel Corporation officially finished its 1 billion peso initiative to clean the river. The project began in 2020 together with the Environmental Department in support of the government's flood mitigation efforts and rehabilitation of Manila Bay. SMC President and CEO Ramon Ang said that with this project, they were able to extract 1.12 million tons of silt and solid waste from the river, which will deepen and widen its water-holding capacity to reduce severe flooding in the metro. This project benefits flood-prone cities of Navotas, Malabon, Valenzuela, and Caloocan. The company also marked the first year of its 2 billion peso cleanup initiative for the Pasig River. So far, they have removed over 510,000 metric tons of solid waste from the polluted river. The company hopes the initiative will entail constant efforts to keep trash from being dumped into the river. China announces new economic measures to deal with the impact of COVID-19 and the worst heat wave that hit the mainland, while Beijing has yet to fully reopen its borders to international travelers. Locals are fueling demand for tourist destinations. Tristan Adalo has the full story.
Beijing is making a comeback over 2 years since the COVID-19 pandemic. People are heading to work, dining out, or pausing in temples and enjoying a leisure time at the park. A far cry from 2020 when the capital was virtually a ghost town. But authorities are making sure people strictly observe COVID-19 protocols. Testing booths are accessible and free to the public.
So before going to any tourist spots or establishments here in Beijing, you have to make sure that you have the Green Health Code. So ito yung ginapakita sa mga establishment o sa bawat lugar na pupuntahan mo sa Beijing bilang proof na you tested negative for COVID-19 in the last 72 hours.
The public can now enjoy most tourist destinations in Beijing like Temple of Heaven at the city central. Around 12 million people visit the UNESCO World Heritage Site every year before the pandemic. A health code is needed to visit the temple. For the nightcap, visitors can take the 45-minute Liangma River cruise. Colorful lights brighten up the 1.8-kilometer stretch of the river. The Liangma River International Waterfront is a new tourist attraction showcasing fashion, modernity, and diverse cultures at the heart of Beijing. While these are good signs out of the pandemic, full economic recovery remains a challenge for the world's second biggest economy. Beijing just announced a number of economic measures to battle the impact of the pandemic and its worst heat wave in 6 decades.
China's biggest focus now remains on infrastructure, but Beijing also aims to boost its local tourism, investment, and consumption to further revive its economy. In Beijing, China, Tristan Odalo, CNN Philippines.
Up ahead, even with Jordan Clarkson and Kai Soto, Gilas comes up short once again to Lebanon. And Ben and Ben releases their new single about moving on, while pop megastar Britney Spears is back with a new club banger in her collaboration with icon Elton John. You're watching CNN Philippines.
It can be dangerous out there. Buti na lang there's locally superfruits. Para sa akin, super nutritious, super delicious. All superfruits contain more antioxidants than your average fruit. Superfruit for a super you.
Welcome back. A fresh setback for Gilas Pilipinas in the fourth window of the FIBA World Cup Asian qualifiers with a bitter loss to Lebanon. But as Pauline Versosa tells us, it was a close fight.
Yeah, for sure.
Gilas Pilipinas came out with great energy to open their campaign in the fourth window of the FIBA World Cup qualifiers. Even with Lebanon's home court advantage, the Filipinos kept their opponents scoreless in the first 2.5 minutes thanks to their great defense. In his much-awaited Gilas return, Philem NBA player Jordan Clarkson immediately made his presence felt, scoring 11 points in the first period.
That's a layup for him. Slow start for his
But Lebanon's offense slowly came back to life as they began to wax hot from downtown. Gilas, unable to sustain their strong start, committed multiple turnovers which suddenly erased their 10-point lead at the half. Asian MVP Wael Arakji then powered his team to a pivotal 68-63 lead by the third period. But Gilas remained within striking distance and even tied things in the final quarter. But in the game's dying seconds, Arakji drilled the dagger 3 that would virtually seal Lebanon's victory. Final score 85-81.
Clarkson.
The loss spoiled Clarkson's big night with the Utah Jazz star finishing with 27 points, 7 assists, and 6 rebounds.
I think we did a good job of competing. You know, we had a great game plan coming in, but you know, it's hard to win when you have 20-plus turnovers in a game like this, especially with the home crowd behind them. But I mean, for us, it's bright. You know, we just getting this team together. We got some good young stars on the team. Just a tough one tonight. You know, we just gotta take it on the head and get back to the drawing board.
Also leading the team's gallant stand was Dwight Ramos, who scored 18 points and 10 rebounds, while Japet Aguilar and Kai Soto chipped in 11 and 10 points respectively. Despite the loss, head coach Shot Reyes says he's very happy with how the team played and how they gave it their best shot.
We expected that it would be a big challenge, a big battle for us. But I'm very proud of the way our team played. I thought we battled and we battled hard. We competed. Unfortunately, we had too many turnovers. 21 turnovers really was the big difference in this ball game. And that's just a result of us not yet as familiar with each other as we'd like to be. So if we get some more time, some more practice time together, then we should be able to address that.
Gilas has now dropped to 2 wins and 3 losses in Group E. The team will look to bounce back when they return home to host Saudi Arabia at the Mall of Asia Arena on August 29. Pauline Versosa, CNN Philippines.
And which team will zip ahead in the PBA Philippine Cup Finals? The San Miguel Beermen and TNT Tropang Giga now facing off at the Mall of Asia Arena in Pasay for Game 3. The series is tied at 1-1. San Miguel leading in the second quarter, 35-30. OPM band Ben & Ben has released their newest single today. The Filipino folk group comes up with, according to fans, one of the most personal and vulnerable songs they've written. The emotional piece speaks about closure and healing after the end of a romance. South Korean girl group Twice has dropped a new album also today entitled Between 1 and 2. The set of songs is led by the single Talk That Talk, featuring the group's fears, looks, and moves. This is a follow-up to their album Formula of Love, released back in November. Justin Bieber will perform in-game at gaming developer Free Fire's 5th anniversary celebration tomorrow. The global superstar will sing Beautiful Love on a virtual stage for the first time with his animated character Jay Beeves. Bieber's new single will officially hit the market on August 30th. Fans are going wild as Britney Spears makes her comeback as a free woman in her latest single, Hold Me Closer. The new song is a collaboration with music legend Elton John. It is a club banger remix of Elton's classic hit, Tiny Dancer. This is the superstar's first release since 2016 and her industry comeback after the termination of her conservatorship in November 2021. Newly released Netflix show The Sandman mixes elements of horror, dark fantasy, and mythology. But author Neil Gaiman told CNN Philippines in an exclusive what truly made the DC Comics series fit for a 2022 adaptation was its gender inclusivity. The show earned praises for introducing gender-fluid characters.
I think it always felt like we were a little ahead of our time, you know, coming out in 1988. 1989. But the great thing about being ahead of your time is you don't really even get attacked. You just get kind of looked at in a baffled kind of way. I mean, I remember somewhere in there, the Concerned Mothers of America wrote us a very strong letter telling us that we had to repent. But it's the great thing about being ahead of your time is if you just wait long enough, the times will catch up with you. And I think right now, Sandman is utterly of its time.
Gayman adds he has a soft spot for the Philippines and is thankful for the show's popularity in the country. The Sandman dropped on Netflix this month. And that is it for tonight. Join me again on News.ph at 7 p.m. I'm Pia Ontiveros for Newsnight, where we go above and beyond the headlines.
RPN Radio Philippines Network. Radyo Ronda DXKS Surigao. Member, kapisanan ng mga broadcaster ng Pilipinas.
It is normal for children to go around exploring as they develop their physical as well as their cognitive skills. But it can also expose these youngsters to different illnesses. These include the common cold, asthma, or even a fever. Today on the program, we'll talk about common childhood illnesses and how to maintain a healthy environment for our kids as they get older. I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez, and welcome to MedTalk Health Talk on CNN Philippines. Joining us for this episode is Dr. Catherine Onghansing. She's a pediatrician from the Los Santos Medical Center and the head of the Breastfeeding Committee. We're also joined by Dr. Katharina Flor Carigma. She's a family medicine specialist from the Asian Hospital and Medical Center. So our guests are here today to give insights on childhood illnesses. So thank you very much for joining us on the program. Now, the immune system, as most people know, protects your child from invaders such as pathogens, germs, viruses, fungi, as well as some toxins for that matter. Now, we'll start the discussion with Dr. K. When it comes to the immune system, lalo na kung bata, no, we always hear about how extreme ages, the really young and the really old, are somewhat immunocompromised. But when it comes to an age, anong age ba talaga na hindi pa develop? When can parents more or less feel that, at what age can most parents feel na maganda ng immune system, buo na ang immune system sa isang bata?
So generally for age, there's no exact number naman based on studies. However, generally around 6 years old, you can more or less feel, okay, this kid is more or less, has been exposed previously to the fungi, the bacteria, the viruses that you've mentioned. Their immune system is more mature or experienced to combat these infections because they're a little bit older.
But there is also a belief that children have this weaker immune system than adults, whereas adults' immunity does decline as they get older. Can you share some of your insights about this naman, Dr. K?
We have to go back to how the immune system works, right? So the immune system works by, once you are exposed to a particular pathogen, bacteria, or virus, that's the time when your body can react to it and make the antibodies to protect itself. So in that concept, when you are younger, when you're a baby, when you're very young, you have not been exposed yet. So that is why you are more prone to develop the infections and the symptoms because you have not yet mounted a protection against these infections.
Now let's talk about some of the more common illnesses dito sa Pilipinas and where our children are more exposed to, because they can range anywhere from the common cold to even chicken pox. Now, Doc Katz, pag-usapan naman natin yun, some of the more common things that our children are exposed to, lalo na mga Filipino children, and let's talk about some of the symptoms. There are many, but some of the more common ones, pag-usapan natin, lalo na ngayon sa balita, chicken pox. Ang chicken pox ba, Dr. Katz, pareho ba ng monkeypox?
No, it's a different causative agent, so magkaiba siya. Monkeypox and chickenpox. Chickenpox is usually seen during the dry season. So we have 2 seasons, right? Dry and wet season. But the monkeypox is different. It came from other parts of the world. Chickenpox is usual for dry season and usually contagious Dun sa mga usually magkakalaro, magkakapatid, pag dry season, mas dumadami siya.
Now let's talk about another common illness with children here in the Philippines, and that is pneumonia. Please talk about that, Dr. Katz. Paano ba nagkaka-pneumonia ang mga bata madalas dito sa Pilipinas?
Usually pneumonia, it comes from if ever the kid or the person is exposed to a pathogen like bacteria or virus and mahina yung immune system natin. That's why it doesn't mean na pawisan, magkaka-pneumonia. Ang causative agent palagi ng pneumonia is either bacteria or virus.
When it comes to pneumonia, is this similar sa isang batang nagkaroon ng trangkaso? Eventually, magkakaroon ba ng pneumonia? Pag sinabing may trangkaso ang bata, papunta rin ba ito sa pneumonia?
First is you have to parang identify what is the cause ba of trangkaso or what we call as the flu. So the flu is caused by the influenza virus. And generally, the symptoms for this would be more or less similar, right, to what children with pneumonia might experience. So they might have fever, cough, colds. However, with flu, sometimes because it's a viral infection, more prominent as well would be weakness, body pains, they might have a loss of appetite. And then generally, a child with flu does not necessarily mean that they'll develop pneumonia. But there are conditions wherein we say that there can be bacterial superinfection as well, wherein because they have the flu, their immune system is weaker because they're sick, they can be more prone to develop bacterial infections on top of what they already have, which is the flu infection.
Now, pag-usapan natin, another illness that is common among Filipino children here is asthma. Now, Dr. K, pag-usapan natin a little bit. Ang batang may asthma, habang bata pa siya, younger than 6-year-old, can they outgrow that?
For asthma naman, because it's basically an allergic condition, right? It means that because your family members, your father, your mother, or someone in your family has asthma before, so you have a tendency to have asthma as well. Now, asthma and these allergic conditions are lifelong. It means that there is no treatment to really forever cure you of the disease. But yes, in fact, some asthma may be more active while you were younger, and then when you get older, it may undergo a period of quiescence. Parang it's not as active, but your risk is still there. Like when you get older, especially if you have an infection where you're immune or you're exposed to triggers, it can get reactivated. So periodic reevaluation is still important.
Okay, so later we'll talk about the severe complications that can cause serious damage to your child's health. We're your connection to better health. This is MedTalk Health Talk.
Para sa sakit sa ulo ug hilanat, unsa nga tambal dapat?
Han, para na ako kanang isog.
Langga, para nako kanang luwas magpaayo.
Di na kinahanglan mamili. Mag-Biogesic. Parehas ka maayo sa isog pero luwas tumaron. Kana ang alagang Biogesic.
Uy!
Pwede man di parehas.
Maayo! Ingat!
Unilab yan.
Paracetamol is the generic name of Biogesic. If symptoms persist, consult your doctor.
Protektahi ang imong mga mata batok sa delikado ug makadaot nga ultraviolet nga silaw sa adlaw ug uban pa. Pinaagi sa pagsulob og eksakto nga prescription sa antiyohos o antipara. Likay ang mga simptomas sama sa hanap nga pananaw sa layo o duol nga basahon, sakit sa ulo ug uban pa nga makaapekto sa atong kahimsog nga ang hinungdan depekto sa atong mga mata. Alang sa kumpleto nga primary eye care, contact lenses, fashion eyewear, computer eyeglasses, sunglasses, accessories ug uban pa, adto kita sa AG Buñuel Optical Clinic. Ang AG Buñuel Optical Clinic nagpahinumdum kanato nga ang kahimsog sa atong mga mata usa ka prioridad nga angay ipa-check up kausa matag tuig aron pagsiguro nga luwas kita sa piligrong mga sakit. Pinaagi sa lisensyado og qualified optometrists nga maoy mo prescribe sa eksaktong kagamitan og kung primary eye care ang paghisgutan. Duaw lang silang buhatan sa 3636 sa Nicolas Street, Surigao City ug adunay ilang extension office sa Aurelianida Street, Cantilan, Surigao del Sur. Ayaw kalimti higala. AG Buñuel Optical Clinic.
Ang AG Buñuel Optical Clinic doon na branch dito sa lungsod sa Dapa sa may Lupis Haina Street, Poblasyon Dapa, Surigao del Norte.
Ang AG Buñuel Optical Clinic dinhi sa syudad ng Surigao. No transfer na sa bag-ong location sa Nicolas Street, Ragyahapon, tapad sa Garcia Hotel at bang sa Unicity. ang Riverside Parts Master Incorporated na sa ilang bagong location sa Dalan, Burgos ning atong syudad. Mahimo niyong tawagan sa telephone number 231-7478 or 826-3663. Mga produkto nga inyong mapalit, genuine, Makita Power Tools sama sa planer, drill, grinder, Triton paints, construction supplies, angle bars, flat bars, GI pipes, automotive spare parts, Firefly electrical devices sama sa switches, bulbs ug outlets. Adto ang Riverside Parts Master Incorporated sa ilang bagong pwesto sa Dalan, Burgos ning syudad. Makahangyo ka o makabarato pagyud diha sa Riverside Parts Master Incorporated.
Aniya na ang food supplement nga kumpleto, sakto o aprobado. Ang Calabo Plus Herbal Capsule. Calabo Plus Herbal Capsule. Maayo alang sa pag-maintain sa inyong maayong panglawas, kahimsog ug kapiskay sa mga pamati. Calabo Plus Herbal Capsule. Pakusog sa enerhiya ug stamina, mupalikon sa imong immune system. Calabo Plus Herbal Capsule. Andam sa pagpakigbatok sa mga nagkadaiyang balatian. Musulay pa baka sa uban? Diri na kita sa kasaligan. Calabo Plus Herbal Capsule. Calabo Plus Herbal Capsule. A quality product of Jesser Marketing. Palit na karon sa mga butika.
EXL Makabuhay Plus Dietary Supplement. Nakakatulong iwasan ang iba't ibang uri ng sakit tulad ng diabetes, arthritis, rheumatism, hypertension, cancer, urinary tract infections o UTI, respiratory tract infections tulad ng ubo, sipon, lagnat, heart attack, constipation, fatigue, kidney, lung problem, premature aging, memory loss at depression. EXL Makabuhay Plus Dietary Supplement. Buhay at makulay ang buhay sa EXL Makabuhay.
EXL Makabuhay Plus Dietary Supplement. Mapalit sa pinakadool nga butika o drugstore sa inyong lugar.
O, anyari sa'yo? Ba't nakasimangot ka? Alam ko na. Masakit ang katawan mo, ano? Sa sobrang trabaho? O di kaya masakit ang ulo sa sobrang stress? Break ka muna. Hinga ng malalim at imasahe ang ulo mo gamit ang Herbalaya Liniment Oil. Ako rin ganun eh. Kaya pag mataas ang tensyon sa trabaho, mag-Herbalaya break ka muna.
Herbalaya Liniment Oil. Amoy na kaaya-aya. Sa bawat pahid ay ginhawa.
I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez and welcome back to Med Talk Health Talk. While many illnesses experienced during childhood are basically normal, there are some illnesses that have somewhat more damaging effects on their health and can be detrimental in the long run if left untreated or mismanaged. Now, Dr. Katz, let's talk about diabetes. Diabetes is very prevalent here in the Philippines, but it's normally associated with adults, especially type 2 diabetes. Dr. Katz, how prevalent now among Filipino children is the risk of developing diabetes?
We have two types of diabetes. Type 1, which is insulin-dependent diabetes, and type 2, the non-insulin dependent, previously known as that. So, but now, because also of the prevalence of the type 2 diabetes with parents, the kids are also at high risk for developing type 1 diabetes because mostly it's also genetically predominant or the high risk factors if one or both parents have that. And then the type 1 diabetes usually affects our Filipino children.
I'd like to talk a little bit about the social aspect of this because a lot of children with the parents natutuwa ang magulang kapag malusog ang bata, mataba, bilog, and they have a tendency to give them anything they want to eat because their mentality is bata pa naman yan, okay pang pakainin yan. Are there any studies, any proof that the habits acquired by a child at an early age, especially eating habits, can be lifelong? Ang ibig sabihin, can a child who is overweight as a child, is there a correlation for them being overweight as adults as well?
Katulad kami sa family, Philippine Academy of Family Physicians, we really advocate that the habits would really start at home. And we should live by example always, especially with the parents. So just like us developing the waist-to-hip ratio, the predictability sa adult, kumbaga kung malaki yung waist mo, yung pwede kang magkaroon ng diabetes, parang mataas yung risk mo. Sa bata, ganun din. Obesity for them, lalo na yung mga eating habits nila, kung hindi nutritious, pwedeng pagtanda nila ng konti or yung medyo mga teenagers sila, magkakaroon na sila ng high cholesterol levels, high sugar levels, and pwede na rin magkaroon ng hypertension.
And of course, we're still in the middle of a pandemic. And according to Save the Children Philippines, while children may not belong to the high-risk groups, and most Filipino children infected with COVID-19 remain to be, for the majority of cases, mild, we still need to protect them from COVID-19. Doc K, let's talk about that. COVID-19 now and children. What's the current situation? How delicado is COVID-19 with Filipino children now?
Thankfully, COVID infection remains to be less serious or less severe as compared to adults. However, we have been witnessing, or in my clinic at least, I have been seeing a lot of cases of COVID infection. Basically, you have to remember, how do these kids get COVID infection is still mainly from exposure from their family members. So the message there is the adults in the family has to make sure that they are protecting themselves from acquiring the infection through the ways that we already now very well understand. Hand washing, wearing a mask properly, social distancing, so that you don't take this disease at home and pass it to your children.
Now, Dr. K, let's remind our viewers again, how young can children get the vaccine for COVID-19?
Right now, we are very thankful that the COVID vaccine is available already for children as young as 5 years old. So we are promoting this very well so that they are protected against the infection.
Now let's talk about another aspect of children, and that is breastfeeding. Dr. Katz, we always hear that notion that breast milk is talagang the best option for babies. Aside from the economics of it, because the mother is able to produce that milk, what other benefits does breast milk have from any other form of milk?
The mother can pass on her immunity or immunoglobulins to the kids. No? It strengthens the immune system, the nutrients and the immunity that the mother has, na-share niya rin doon sa anak niya. So not only the bond, but also the other aspects of nutrition, strengthening the immune system, and then giving the proper love and care being given through breastfeeding.
Now, I'd like to ask Dr. K, for those, hindi naman lahat ng moms are able to breastfeed their child easily. There are a lot of challenges. Let's talk about that.
First is not incomplete or improper guidance. So, because our culture already, there are less moms who are already breastfeeding. They grew up not knowing particularly how to do it. It is still a skill. So, number one is seek consult so that we can guide you on how to properly breastfeed your kids so that we can maximize your potential in producing milk for your babies. So there are many milk available, such as from donor milk from mothers who are blessed with more milk and they are able to donate milk. Those are available in our milk banks, available for babies so that they can get the benefits of breast milk even if their parents cannot provide it 100%. Other options also are, of course, milk formula will still remain as a good option if after exhausting everything, breast milk is not 100% available.
Dr. K, as a follow-up there, how can mothers who are having trouble breastfeeding, how can they get this information? May bayad ba ito? What are some of the programs available?
There are free outlets out there that help mothers get the information that they need on how they can breastfeed. For example, in Facebook, there are so many online groups that are available. You just look it up, and I'm even part of a lot of them that give free information and give you the benefit of other mothers sharing their experiences on how they were able to overcome their challenges for breastfeeding. Next is, of course, us who are professionals who are trained to help mothers achieve an optimal breastfeeding experience. We are lactation consultants and we are available for consultation, although of course it comes with a fee, so that we can guide the families on how to best breastfeed their kids.
Now, illnesses are normal to experience while growing up. We all know that. And maintaining a child's health is also key in making sure they grow up well. More on this when we return. This is Med Talk, Health Talk.
Maayong balita sa tanan sa atong panginahanglan sa panimalay, mga gamit, ingon man mga dekorasyon, pwede na natong mapalit diha sa Wellington Bazaar. Anausab sa Wellington Bazaar ang mga bestidahon, karsunison, plain t-shirt, plastic chair, floor mat, mantel, banig, folding bed, habol, mosketero, trapal, lideret, basketball, stuffed toys ug mga dulaan sa bata. Ang Wellington Bazaar ana magalagad kanato sa Dalan Kaymo ning Dakbayan sa Surigao. Wellington Bazaar, gikan sa mga kawani ug tigdumala sa Wellington Bazaar. Mayong adlaw alang kaninyo. Wellington Bazaar, sukiyon ta sa kanunay.
Uy, day! Naunsa man ka, day?
Day, kanang glisod na mga kakita, day. Uy!
Sus, naunsa ba ka? Uy nga, katong ni aging bulan. Okay pa man ka. Naunsa day karon?
Laot siguro ni sisingunit aning cellphone kanang si computer, day.
Da, mo lagi na akong ingon ba? Uy, day, nakoy balita para sa imuha. Gamit og Lutein Plus, uy.
Lutein Plus?
Oo, tungod ang Lutein Plus, day, duna kini 13 ka ingredients. Hindi lang kini para sa mata, kundi sa imuhang tibuok lawas. Nga maka-assist pod sa imuhang anxiety ug depression.
Ang Lutein Plus o sa ka-award-winning brand nga gikan pa sa New Zealand.
The award-winning supplements from Clean Green New Zealand Omega Plus support sa heart and blood system. Ang Lutein Plus ay 13 ka mga ingredients lakip ng vitamins A and C. Dili lamang kung maradyaw sa itong pananaw, nagsuporta sa bini sa ato intero lawas. Ning panahon nga jari kita kuman sa COVID-19 pandemic, kinahanglan magpabilin kitang himsog inom sa Lutein Plus, Omega Plus, and Primrose Plus of Gel. Inintanan available sa New Family Drug, Palma Drug, sa Aquarian Pharmacy.
Pagdalaga o gulitaw na gani, kinahanglan limpyo ug hamis kanunay ang kutis. Gamit og Karisma Kojic Soap. Karisma Kojic Soap, pampahamis, pampaputi ug pampabata sa panit. Karisma Kojic Soap. Karisma Kojic Soap. Mao kini ang tubag alang sa mga teenager nga gusto makaangkon og nindot nga kutis. Karisma Kojic Soap. Karisma Kojic Soap. Karisma Kojic Soap. Karisma Kojic Soap. Ang sikreto sa mga gwapa o gwapo. Karisma Kojic Soap, mabalit sa inyong mga suking butika.
Mga Surigaonon, ana-anay maayong lugar na adtuan ang Interior Hub Home Furnishing Shop nga nahimutang sa Dalan Borromeo ning Dakbayan sa Surigao. Anaa kanila ang barato ng mga gamit para sa pagpagwapa sa inyong banyo, kusina o tibuok balay. Nagtanyag sila sa mga packages, sa faucet, wash basin o toilet bowl with complete fittings na swak sa inyong budget. Sa Interior Hub Home Furnishing Shop, daghan kay kapilian, mga bagong mga designs o dekalidad ang mga produkto. Interior Hub Home Furnishing Shop, Borromeo Street, Surigao City. Owned and managed by Earl Brian Palma. Contact number 0945 30-60-648.
EXL Makabuhay Plus Health and Wellness for God's Glory.
Nakay pasyente ma'am no, mo isuon o sa gibati ato ma'am.
Ang gibati ato niya do, ikalihok yung mga lawas, ang ulo lang makalihok, ang kamot dili, wala na, di nakadaw yung lawas, bugab na nakaayo, mandi maasa yung tiil. Makabuhay Plus lang dyan, tuloy ang sa Ginoo. Samsud, nakalakaw na din siya do. Primero ina niya pero higaan na din pamati, mga lihok na, pagkatudis, makakaon na siya, makagulit na kaksara. Makabuhay Plus lang dyan, tuloy ang sa Ginoo dyan. Tingin pa yan na naman, nakakit kami, ani sa mumbalay na nagmuto na dyan.
Sige pangalan ni mo ma'am?
Si Arlene po, Tagaturin.
Makabuhay! EXL Makabuhay Plus Dietary Supplement. Mapalit sa pinakadool nga butika o drugstore sa inyong lugar.
O, anyari sa'yo? Ba't nakasimangot ka? Alam ko na. Masakit ang katawan mo, ano? Sa sobrang trabaho? O di kaya masakit ang ulo sa sobrang stress? Break ka muna. Hinga ng malalim at imasahe ang ulo mo gamit ang Herbalaya Liniment Oil. Ako rin ganun eh. Kaya pag mataas ang tensyon sa trabaho, mag-Herbalaya break ka muna.
Herbalaya Liniment Oil. Amoy na kaaya-aya. Sa bawat pahid ay ginhawa.
I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez and welcome back to Med Talk Health Talk. It's essential for every parent to do their best to keep their child healthy. Now, a key element to this is making sure they take the right nutrition in order to develop properly. Dr. Katz, pag-usapan naman natin ngayon nutrition na dapat para sa bata. We talked about this a little bit earlier, but let's dive into it a little bit more because we've all heard of the food pyramid. How important is this as a nutrition guide for children?
It's very important na makita natin yung food pyramid, lalo depende rin kasi yan kung ano yung age ng bata. But yun yung guide natin for us to know what to give our kids. Example, for younger kids, masyado silang hyper, diba? Masyado silang, they need energy. So we give whole grain food as source of carbohydrates. And then for elderly kids, nasasanay na sila minsan na kumain ng mga salty food, mga junk food. So kailangan mag-offer tayo, and we have to make, we as parents and in the family, we offer healthy foods na kaya nilang kainin and parang similar doon sa taste nila. So depending on the age group, lahat yon kailangan may health benefits sa mga bata. Kailangan kung ano yung need nila at the time of their growth.
Now let's talk about water, and specifically dehydration. Dr. Katz, is dehydration in a child the same as an adult who is getting dehydrated?
Usually, our children are prone to dehydration. A child can develop dehydration even just for 3 bouts of loose bowel movement or vomiting. So, a child is more prone to dehydration than the normal adult.
Now, Dr. K, what exactly should parents be looking for when choosing food supplements, multivitamins for their kids? Mahilig, ito yung nasa number 1 sa mga shopping list ng maraming mga parents. What's your take on this? What should the mindset be of parents when it comes to supplements and multivitamins?
Multivitamins and supplements are not necessary for most healthy children. Food, making sure that it's adequate and healthy, is still the best source of nutrients for these kids. So there are some kids who may benefit from multivitamins, however. For example, those who are exhibiting growth delays, they're smaller, they're thinner than their counterparts, or those who are, of course, picky eaters. They have very restrictive diets. So in order to ensure that we're giving enough of the nutrients, they might benefit from giving multivitamins.
Now, Dr. Katz, I would like to talk to you about exercise and sleep. Now, we all know as adults, kailangan talaga ng balance of exercise, good amounts of sleep. But for children, lalo na yung mga batang hindi outdoorsy, kumbaga, no? They like to study indoors, they like to read books. Physical exercise really isn't their cup of tea. How could we help the parents give them that much needed physical activity, kumbaga?
Usually, we tell the parents to give their children schedules, like the amount of time through gadgets, and then you close the gadgets, this time in eating, and then we encourage some physical activity sa bahay lang, kung ano yung gusto nila, to encourage them. But scheduling of activities is very good for these kids. Lalo na kasi yung attention span nila minsan, maiksi lang. So, may kita nila, okay, at this time, kailangan pala ganito na. At this time, kailangan tumayo na ako and I'll do some running in place or dancing or some simple exercises for them.
With that in mind, thank you very much, Dr. Catherine Onghansing and Dr. Kathrina Flor Carigma for being with us today and sharing your expertise about childhood illnesses. I'm Dr. Freddy Gomez, and thank you for watching Med Talk Health Talk. We'll see you again next time.
RPN Radio Philippines Network. Radyo Ronda DXKS